Welcome to Hope Channel International. Is the Bible even still relevant in this day and age? Are the prophecies still valid? This video has the answers.
It's phenomenal. The book has prophecies that roll through time, and Revelation rolls right down to our day.
It's interesting that all those big prophecies start in the very day of the prophet, but then they go in a big sweep right to the second coming of Jesus or the judgment or both. And so it's pretty clear that at every stage of composing or writing the Bible, God had every generation in mind.
And in Revelation, I mean, it announces that right in the first few verses, doesn't it? It says it'll show you things that will come to pass.
Yeah.
Right there in Revelation chapter 1. So it says it's going to be that. And then in verse 5 or 6 or 7, it says he's coming with clouds. So it takes you from the things happening in John's day all the way down to the second coming of Jesus.
Always from the day of the prophet to the second coming of Christ. Now we're going to look at the first of the 7 letters, but let me ask you just about the 7 letters to the 7 churches in general. People have long suspected, in fact for 2,000 years, Bible students and scholars have suspected that, well, these are letters to real churches back in the first century. They actually existed and probably went to those churches to be read out loud. There's been this sense that these letters are more than that they're actually a prophecy, that they actually deal with all of Christian history from John's day, again, down to the second coming. What evidence do we have that we should be looking at these letters as a prophecy?
Well, I think the biggest evidence is testing the premise. Are they a representative of 7 ages of history from John's day down to ours? Well, we have at least 6 of those in the past, right? So we can look at that, and history confirms it. You know, Jesus said one of the ways that you'll know whether prophecy is true or not is after it comes to pass, you'll see, oh yeah, that lines up perfectly.
So that would mean, of course, that prophecy is not so much about predicting every detail about the future as recognizing that God isn't surprised by anything, that, hey, didn't we read this somewhere? And so you recognize it at the moment and know that God is true. It's more about that than predicting.
Which gives you assurance when you're going through it, because then you say, all right, I may be in this crisis, I might be in this terrible time, but somebody knew, God knew before this happened that it was going to happen, and He'll see me through it. So it gives us assurance.
Yeah, you know what I find interesting? There's all kinds of evidence here that this really is speaking to every generation, that they're prophetic. The fact that there's 7 churches in this list, that's a big indication that this is more than just literal churches and
That's
literal
right, because
letters.
there were other churches in Asia Minor. This is in what's known as modern Turkey today, and we're showing some of the pictures there behind you of the area. But modern Turkey is where that was. But in Asia Minor back then, there were many other Christian churches even bigger than these. So why would God pick out these 7 churches, especially when the number 7 has significance?
It always does. 7 is a complete thing. And these 7 churches were on a path that, if you follow, everybody knew that was a horseshoe road that went from Ephesus over to Laodicea and ended. So it was a complete path. So we pick churches that are on a path that has an ending. There's 7 of them, the number of completion. We skip big churches like, well, the church of Colossae, the letter to the Colossians, left out of the list. There's all kinds of evidence that this really is pointing to something bigger than just literal churches and literal
And what was interesting is right off the coast of modern-day Turkey, where Ephesus, the ruins are located, right off the coast is Patmos. And Patmos is where John was imprisoned when he wrote this. He was in exile there. So he sent the letter from there. It went by boat over to the mainland, and then it followed the normal road that a postal carrier would take a letter. And it went to all these 7 churches. So it's kind of like through the stream of time, God is carrying His message.
And they're open letters. These would have been read probably in every church out loud. And,
and probably copied and then sent on to the next church.
Fascinating.